Welcome back to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. I am your host, the Salty Nerd. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing Christopher Nolan's new movie, Tenet.
Go to the end of the episode and listen to it backwards, and it'll make more sense than this movie did.
We're going to have a nice long conversation, not long, but we're going to have a nice conversation about what we enjoyed, what we didn't enjoy. Kadish is going to defend his side. I'm going to defend my side, and Vader's going to tell us we're snobs, and that'll be it. So
hopefully this is a very short discussion.
Yeah, I think it will be. We're going to try and stick it to about a half an hour.
We should do a temporal pincer maneuver. Vader starts at the end of the episode and explains
works his way back.
This movie was stupid. I give it 1 star.
Yeah, final thoughts, guys.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
All right.
This movie made me feel dumb and confused.
The end.
Kadish, why don't you tell everybody kind of the basic idea of what Tenet is all about, and then we'll break it down.
All right. Well, first of all, this is the first movie that a lot of us got to see in theaters in a very long time.
Yes.
That was fun.
Post-COVID.
Yeah, we went to the luxury theater here in Las Vegas. And even though it was opening weekend for Labor Day weekend, the movie
empty
was pretty much empty.
Was there 3 other people in the theater?
Is that it? Yeah, I think that was about it.
Yeah, but we got the nice reclining seats and the popcorn. And once we sat down in our seats, we didn't have to wear our masks, which was nice. Shout
out to Galaxy Theaters for doing their due diligence.
Restaurant rules.
Yeah.
Makes no sense, but whatever.
Man, was the sound loud. That's one of the things I wanted to talk about. Okay, but before we get to that, let's talk about Tenet.
Yep.
So basically, Tenet is about a unnamed protagonist. The main character never got a name in the movie. And basically armed with one word, the word Tenet, and fighting for the survival of the entire world, a protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. So this is basically a James Bond movie with time travel. And the concept behind Tenet is this idea of reverse entropy or time inversion. Instead of traveling forward through time, the tachyons, which kind of, exist in a entangled state, travel backwards in time. And so basically you can create objects and people that experience time in reverse.
I'm pretty sure Star Trek has done this better already.
Maybe. It's a very intelligent idea. And basically there was a movie called Primer that came out years ago. I think it was sometime in the 90s, might have been 99. And it was considered the most accurate portrayal of time travel ever captured on film. And basically the way that reverse chronology works is that if you want to travel back in time 10 days, you have to, basically spend 10 days going back in time and then reverse your
polarity or inversion.
Yeah. And once you start going forward in time, you'll re-experience the last 10 days. And that's kind of what Tenet is about, is basically in the future, the world is like falling apart because of global warming or whatever. So there's an organization at some point in the far future that is trying to manipulate time so that they can change things and make things better. But in doing so, they're creating all types of problems. And Tenet is a shadowy organization that's trying to prevent them from succeeding, because them succeeding could potentially unravel all of time.
Yeah.
And so basically the good guys are trying to preserve the timeline and the bad guys are trying to change the timeline or eliminate it altogether, because they believe that, Tenet kind of takes the fixed timeline concept of whatever's happened has already happened. And, so
it has to happen.
And it has to happen. So you can't change what's happened. And basically they believe that if we can just erase what's happened, we'll just continue on like nothing's happened. so their whole goal is basically to blow up time. And they think that by doing that, they can just kind of restart everything.
So, all right. So real quick, let's go around and talk about what we liked, and then we'll get into what we didn't like. And then me and Kadish will argue about whether or not it was good or not. So, is there anything in this movie that you actually did enjoy? Vader, I'll ask you first.
I liked the first 10 minutes.
The opera scene,
opera house stuff. Yeah, but
it was a very important.
It was just a good action sequence, but I need more than that, more than that in a movie like this. Yeah. Once they started doing the time travel stuff and everything going backwards and the temporal
pincer maneuvers.
Yeah, it just really lost me. I thought it was really poorly executed.
There was the temporal pincer is this like military move where one version of these.
No, the pincer maneuver is a military move, and then the temporal version of it has to do with time.
Yeah, they send two different teams, one going backwards, one going forwards, and then the one that has already done this particular mission can feed information to the ones that are going into it so that they have like a leg up on the situation. But it was funny. There's like two different pincer inversion, whatever do we call it, inverted pincer maneuvers in the movie. But then if you look at the movie as a whole, the whole thing is actually this is a inverted pincer. I can't say that.
It's not inverted. It's a temporal. Pincer
Sorry,
maneuver.
yeah, it's a temporal pincer maneuver.
Yeah, much like Inception, they've got pincer maneuvers within pincer maneuvers.
Yeah.
See, you guys, I'm already confused, and we're just getting started.
It was
I feel exactly right now. I feel exactly the way I did when I left the theater.
So you didn't really care for any of it then?
No, not really.
Even characters or nothing?
No.
Okay, just the action was cool to watch. That's about it.
It wasn't even that cool to watch. Even the action scenes were confusing. The whole scene on the freeway with the cars crashing and stuff. It's like, I'd rather go watch Matrix 2 with that freeway scene. Yeah, it was way better.
The freeway scene in Matrix 2 is
That's pretty badass.
It's awesome. Yeah. I felt like Nolan figured out a trick with making his movie go backwards, and he just wanted to like play with that new little trick.
Yeah.
And the way they like protected themselves in the backwards world, wrapping themselves in plastic and putting on stupid oxygen masks. It's like, no. I need more. I need more than this, man. It just felt cheap. It felt just kind of rigged together. It's like he didn't put any effort into just explaining things. It was just like I felt confused. People say, "Oh, well, he's got to challenge the audience," and this is one of those movies you got to think about. And it's like, no, I don't like movies I have to think about too much. That's why I like movies like, with stuff blowing up.
Arnold Schwarzenegger movies.
Yeah, like I need monsters and dragons and ninjas and
boobs.
This just wasn't my kind of movie.
Right.
I'm not going to bash people for liking it. It's just
it's not for you.
It was just too much.
Yeah.
It was
I can understand it. I understand where you're coming from.
This was like an action movie for movie snobs. It's kind of what I feel like.
Kadish, is there anything in this movie that you actually enjoyed or any credit that you can give to it?
There's lots of things in this movie that I enjoyed.
Good.
Nolan, he'd been toying with this concept for this movie for like 20 years, and he spent 6 years writing the script for it. And I can always tell when a movie's going to be problematic when actors come out and flat out say that they had a hard time with the script. And, like Kenneth Branagh, who plays the villain in this movie, he basically came out and said that like he had to reread the script every morning, and he felt like he was doing a New York Times crossword puzzle when he was doing it. And it took John David Washington like 5 hours to do his first read of the script because like he had to kept like rereading scenes to try to understand it.
Yeah.
And so when you have a situation like that, and it was the same thing with Jupiter Ascending, where like it's a 600-page script, and the actors were like, I don't understand anything, so it must be brilliant. Yeah. I feel like it's the same thing here, where the biggest problem I had with this movie was that it was more in love with its concepts and its set pieces than it was with actually telling a good story. And like, if you look at this movie piecemeal and you look at kind of like the mind-bending concepts behind it, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting movie. Like this, they didn't do any green screen in this movie. Everything was practically done. That was shot entirely in IMAX, which is like never done. But like, this movie, they had to invent like new IMAX cameras just to like film it. Cameras that went in reverse and like were quieter and required less light and stuff like that. On a technical level, this movie is amazing. The set piece action scenes, the amount of thought that went into all the reverse chronology stuff, like the scene where they go back to the airport and the protagonist is basically fighting himself.
Yeah.
And this is a scene that we've already seen in the past, and seeing how that came together and being like, oh, okay. Like that type of thing was cool.
Yeah.
But everything else was so weird. So first of all, you don't get to know any of the characters all that well. And because you don't get to know or care about any of the characters or their interactions with one another, there's nothing at stake here because you just don't care about what happens. At least I didn't. When it comes to the musical score, so like this is the first movie that Nolan's done in a long time that didn't have Hans Zimmer as the composer. He's off doing Dune because that's like his passion project. So there was a new composer here who I thought put together a terrible score. And the sound mix on this movie was such that it literally drowned out so much of the dialogue that I couldn't understand what people were saying half the time.
I think that was more of a problem with the theater that we were in than it was with
Actually,
the movie.
Apparently it's not.
Well, other people have said the same thing.
Other people have said the same thing.
Because
and that was actually an issue that the Dark Knight Rises had as well.
Yeah. Well, they were talking about Bane not having that mask.
Not just Bane, but like issue where like the sound mix was louder than the dialogue. And I think they fixed that for like home video releases, but like in the theater, it just became something where like I would miss out what people were saying on screen. And so I wouldn't understand what was happening. I wouldn't get the explanations I needed to actually understand, the action that was occurring. Not only that, but the score was just bad. It was almost comical in some places. I thought the actors were all really good. Like when they were doing like the reverse shots, the actors actually had to learn their dialogue backwards. Kenneth Branagh had to learn his dialogue backwards with a Russian accent. So like very complicated stuff.
The amount of work that goes into this, man, it'd be crazy.
But like they had like, their set pieces were like really great. The problem I had though is like, it felt like, okay, we have to go from heist to set piece to heist to set piece to heist. And like, you don't care about why they're doing it or like what the stakes are. You don't really understand that until at least like towards like the end of the movie. And it was just like a weird thing where like, if you take a step back and you rewatch this movie multiple times and you really stop and think about it, it's probably brilliant. But in the first experience when you're sitting there watching it, you're lost and you can't enjoy a movie when you're constantly wondering like, why are they doing this? What's happening? Why don't I care about this character? What's going on?
I feel like if you go to a movie and it's like, I'm okay with wanting to go back and rewatch a movie. I've done that lots of times, but I feel like a movie like this where it's like, you feel like it's required almost, which is the impression that I get from literally everybody I've talked to about this and seen on internet.
Yeah.
Is if you have to go back and watch a movie to understand it, then the filmmaker to me has failed. If third, fourth, fifth viewings are required material, then it's too complicated.
Okay.
I'll
tell you guys what I thought. And I'm just going to start off by saying like Kadish, as far as like, the experience of writing books and your experience working with movies and storytelling, you're vastly smarter than I am. So I was actually shocked that you didn't really understand this movie at first glance and it might have been because I was able to understand a lot of the dialogue. I didn't have a problem understanding the dialogue. I don't know why, but when I was listening to the movie, I can see where you guys are saying that the mixing was a bit off. I will agree with you on that, but I usually don't have a hard time understanding complex movies. Yeah.
Like Inception.
Inception was great.
Yeah, Inception was fantastic. Yeah. But for whatever reason, and it wasn't so much that I couldn't understand the time inversion stuff. It was more that I couldn't understand motivations or really important story points. And
And do you think it was because you couldn't understand what they were saying?
That had a lot to do with it.
Because I didn't have a problem with that. I understood the majority of what the characters were talking, the dialogue between the two and the explanations that they were giving for what was happening. I could hear it and I could understand it. So I felt like I was a little bit more able to like understand what was happening in the movie because the explanation was being fed to me throughout the film. It was puzzling.
Yeah, there was one point towards the end of the movie where Matt just literally looked at me when they were doing the whole battlefield thing, and he was like, who are they fighting and why? And I looked at him and I went, I don't know. And then we both looked back at the theater screen and we finished the movie. But that was exactly how that little conversation went down. And we're like, fuck, what's going on?
Yeah, they were not clear about very important plot details in this movie.
So I disagree with you guys on the character part because I actually did learn a lot about the characters that were in the movie, especially the most important ones was the main antagonist's wife. What was her name?
Kat.
Okay. Her backstory was fleshed out really well and it actually looped together and it was like one of the perfect complete circle as far as like time travel goes, because if you watch the movie and it kind of explains that like I was with my husband and we were happy for a while, but then I saw that he was having an affair with this woman and I saw her jump off the boat. Like that was explained. She was talking about her relationship with this like really evil jerk that she used to love, but now everything's kind of fallen apart and they've distanced themselves and they're blackmailing each other and this and that. And like, I understood her story. I understood her motivation. Her motivation was purely about her son. And when the movie revealed that she was the woman who jumped off the boat that her past self saw, I was like, oh, that was freaking brilliant. Like, I love that scene. I thought it was so cool. And I loved how it tied everything together.
There is a lot of cool time travel stuff in this, but like once you start diving into the logic, it doesn't really hold up. So like, for instance, the main bad guy played by Kenneth Branagh, his name's Sator, Andre Sator. And he's like this arms dealer, like whatever. And basically he wants to blow up time by basically igniting this thing called the algorithm, which is like a series of...
Igniting?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I don't think that's what they were trying to do. His sole purpose was this like far future
he wanted
element
to destroy the world.
Was telling him that he needed to hide the complete algorithm in this one particular place so that they could have it in the future and nobody else would see it until then.
But okay, so like that was set up in the movie, but the reason that so like he had like a heart monitor attached to that thing called the algorithm, which is like this weird metal thing that has like the algorithm.
Yeah, it's
a mathematical formula for time travel, basically, time inversion.
But essentially, like when he died, that would set off the algorithm to basically destroy all of time. And he wanted to basically take the entire world with him because he got cancer from, all of like the radioactive places that he was like digging up, parts of the algorithm from. And that was the reason why Kat couldn't kill him right away, is because they needed to retrieve the algorithm from his underground vault before they could kill him. Otherwise,
he would know and he would go back.
No, it wasn't that he would know. Otherwise, he would successfully detonate it and it would basically destroy all of time. And the very fact that we have to like argue about this is just proof positive that, this movie is too confusing for its own good. But anyway, so when he gets to his boat, the question is that by this point, he has to know that it's a fixed timeline, that everything that happened, and you can't change it. And so like, if he knows that, his other self, who is off the boat at this time, continues to move forward in time and do everything that he has to do to get to that point, then he has to know that he fails at that, right? Because it's been established that like everything that happens has already happened and you can't change it.
Right. That is true.
But even worse than that is, so like the whole premise of this movie is flawed in the sense that you have this scientist that comes up with this algorithm to reverse time.
The Oppenheimer scientist.
The Oppenheimer equivalent.
Yeah.
And basically, Oppenheimer was the guy who invented the nuclear weapon. And so in order to save time from, human interference, the scientist in the future for some reason records her algorithm on these metal things that she breaks up and sends backwards in time in irradiated places of the world in order to
hide them from the people that she made it for.
If she was really afraid of people misusing this, why record it at all?
I think it was already done. It's like trying to put the genie back in the bottle. You can't do it, but you can try to hide it from people.
But I mean, like
you're already bored with the explanation, Vader.
Very much so.
I mean, you couldn't erase the hard drive and not write it down on a couple metal discs and just kill yourself.
I think
like the whole point that like she somehow allowed her research to be out in the universe was a little bit of a stretch for me.
I feel like it's like, okay, we're in the future, but we're going to write this shit down on some bronze tablets like the Dead Sea Scrolls and put them in a cave in the middle of the desert so nobody can find them for 1,000 years. It's like, what? It's just like, it was strange. It was just,
it was weird.
Okay. Another thing I wanted to, again, with the character development, I actually disagree. I think the characters were really well fleshed out. And I think
not at all. We didn't even get a name for the main character.
Yeah, but that's kind of like, that's the point. That's like the gimmick. Tenet is all very secretive and you're not supposed to know anything about everybody.
Oh, but like in a good story, you care about the character. Like the villain's motivation in this movie, like was just beyond me.
He's just a selfish person who doesn't.
It's lazy writing.
Very possessive.
It's lazy writing.
Who was the Indian lady? What was her purpose?
Oh, she was the arms dealer.
The arms dealer. Okay.
Her name,
I don't even know what these people are supposed to do in this movie.
Her name was Priya, and she was actually a secret member of Tenet.
Okay, yeah.
She was in place as a member of Tenet to keep tabs on this arms dealer and kind of like work in the background against, or not against him, but just kind of put herself in a position of power so that she can help the crew of Tenet out.
Well, let me ask.
The character, I think the character development was great. By the end of the movie, I'll admit that like during most of the movie, you don't really know much about the protagonist, but by the end of the movie, the reveal that he's the one kind of like behind it all, and he's the one who has been protecting the world from this like time inversion catastrophe. Like I thought that was plenty of character development for him and his relationship with Neil. Have you guys heard the theory about Neil?
Yes.
Yeah, I know you have. You probably dived into this, but have you? I don't know if this might blow your
Shaking
mind.
my head sideways.
No. Neil is hinted at, and it is legit hinted at during the movie that he is actually the child that what's the wife's name again?
Kat and her husband Sator.
Their kid Maximilian is actually Neil in the past. And Neil is the one who's, if you look at the timeline of everything that's happening, Neil is the arguably the main character of the driving force behind everything.
They're basically doing the temporal pincer maneuver where Neil, the Robert Pattinson character, is traveling backwards in time. Who he was like kind of mentored by the protagonist and, told what to do. And so he's going backwards in time as the protagonist is going forward. And the protagonist's older self is going to eventually be the one who founds Tenet and recruits Neil and does all that stuff. And the final shot of the movie is, the protagonist looking at Kat embrace her son, Max.
Yeah.
And you think that he's looking at her, but he's actually looking at the kid as he realizes that's Neil.
Yeah. That's the secret behind it all.
But I had to go on the internet to discover that. Like I did not get that from watching the movie.
I didn't either.
Well, I mean,
and that's another fail. If you have to go to the internet to have something on the movie explained to you, that's that important.
I don't know.
Then again, it's not done well.
And
I kind of disagree.
Another thing is that, so the climax of the movie is basically the Tenet organization is doing an assault on this underground bunker in a Russian like ghost city that was basically emptied out by nuclear fallout. And the main character, or the main bad guy, Sator, has his like little underground vault there where he keeps, all like the time travel.
And this is his hometown where he originally started his business and where he made his millions.
And when the protagonist gets down there, he's locked out in this cage and there's like a dead guy in front of him. And you see like this little string on the dead guy's backpack, which is the same string that was on the backpack of the guy who saved him at the opera house at the beginning.
Who was inverted.
Yeah. And so like there's this dead body there and it's Robert Pattinson by this point, you can guess. But like the weird thing is, so like they're trying to break open this cage to get to the algorithm before time runs out. And Sator's kind of right-hand henchman guy is in there and he's kind of setting things up to like blow up. And when the henchman's about to kill the protagonist by shooting him through the cage, the Robert Pattinson dead guy inversion character pops up, takes the bullet through the head, and then unlocks the cage and starts reverting back in time. And that's kind of like he starts going back throughout the movie to the point where he's at the
opera house
at the very beginning. So like you've basically seen like where he ends up by the end of the film. And when you stop and you think about it and you do your research online, you realize, oh, okay, that's what was happening. But while I was watching it, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like who was that guy who jumped in front of the editing in this movie was so bad. Oh my God. Like it just made it even more confusing to watch.
I disagree. I think the key element to that and understanding what was happening was that little red string with the washer on it on his backpack.
But I didn't even notice that until the end.
Oh, I noticed it in the first.
I noticed that too.
Yeah,
they made a explicit effort to show us the red string.
Yeah, anytime the camera focused on the guy's backpack with the red string, like that was like the key element.
I mean,
to the
I didn't
whole
notice
thing.
that at the beginning of the movie.
You didn't?
I did not.
Oh, I did, 100%. And that's why I was looking for it when they showed Robert Pattinson's character with that backpack. I was like, oh, okay, so that's him, and he saved him while he was inverted at the very beginning of the movie. Now, I'm not going to say that I understood 100%. Oh, I totally got this movie. This was simple, just your average Nolan movie. No, I was really trying hard to play catch up and this movie doesn't give you a lot of time to do that. Like it's one thing next after another. There's no like pause or slow moment where you can kind of like catch up with the events of the movie. It's very fast paced.
There was a moment in the movie where the protagonist had gone back in time and he meets up with Priya, the arms dealer lady from India. And he tells her to send him on this other mission when he comes to her next, his past self. And then it like hard cuts to this boat where like he's doing pull-ups, and him, Robert Pattinson, and the character Kat, the wife of Sator, are already on the boat, and they're going back in time to pull off this temporal pincer maneuver to get this underground vault thing. And the cut was so abrupt, they didn't set up the fact that these guys were going to go back and revert time and go back. Like, it was just such a hard cut. I was like, wait, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
You know, like it was such a weird edit. And this movie is just filled with these like very choppy edits that I was just like, I know like Nolan's been guilty of this in the past in some of his previous movies, but they were never like so prevalent. And I think a lot of that actually had to do with COVID, because when the lockdown happened, they hadn't finished editing. So like,
He didn't have a team.
so like he basically, Nolan had to finish the movie at his editing suite at home with a reduced team. And also the composer had to like compose the music by having his orchestra record their bits from home and send them to him.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
That's weird.
That is very weird.
So like this whole movie was kind of like a patchwork of stuff, but like I just felt like it was a very uneven movie. There are very cool concepts at play here, and there's some really amazing filmmaking going on. But overall, I feel like the story was too complicated. There wasn't enough explanation. The sound mixing was off, the editing was off, and the characters are kept at like such a distance that you can't really care about any of them.
I would have been interested to see what this movie would have done if movie going was normal.
Oh,
Like,
to see if box office. That's a big time Nolan movie, though.
Because I think what would have happened is it had a lot of hype, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was a big hype movie, but I think it would have been one of those movies that would have had a really good like first 3 or 4 days. Then that second weekend drop off would have been enormous.
Really?
I really think so.
Okay, so we'll do final thoughts. I'll start. I have to agree to disagree with Kadish. I enjoyed the characters. Yes, it was a very complicated movie, and I have to disagree with you, Vader. I would like to go back and watch this movie again, because I feel like on the second viewing, I would get more out of it. Not that it failed, but just knowing what I know now and having the ability to like not focus on what's like really happening in the main story, but kind of like pick up on these little side notes. I think it would add so much. I'm looking forward to watching it again.
This is definitely a movie you need to watch more than once in order to fully appreciate it.
Yeah.
I would probably want to watch it at least 5 more times to try to try to analyze it, break it down. Because I mean, like, I love studying movies.
Yeah.
And like, this is a movie where like it's deep enough where like there's so much stuff going on that like the filmmakers probably put in there that you can't get on the first viewing. That I would like to like sit at home where like I can control the sound mix and put on subtitles.
When it hits HBO in a couple of weeks, I'll watch it then.
In a couple of weeks. I think that if you actually did that and you watched this movie multiple times and studied it and broke it down, I think that the concept and the way it's presented in the film would actually, your attitude towards it would improve. I think there's a lot to this movie that we might not be picking up on the first try, but if we watch it again and again, I think I can't imagine a movie by Nolan, because he's always making these complicated movies like Inception and Memento and all this stuff.
But his other movies are entertaining.
He's obviously thought this out. I don't think there's anything in this movie that he's like, well, he just dropped the plot line and forgot about it. Like, no, that didn't happen. Like, maybe we're not getting it, and maybe he did a poor job of like presenting it to us, but I don't for a second think that he dropped the ball on anything.
The thing is like, I can come to intellectually appreciate this movie more, but I don't think I can come to enjoy it more. I feel like this movie just, as an entertainment, as a piece of entertainment, as a piece of storytelling, it just falls flat. Mm-hmm. But as a conceptual piece, as a piece that, you know, kind of challenges you to think about it, you know, it's something that's really good.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's one of those movies that's ever going to achieve widespread acclaim. I think it's one of those movies that's going to become like a cult thing where there's going to be a small subgroup of people that just obsess over this film.
I can see that.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be one of them.
But you can tell that Nolan was trying to set up a franchise with this, because it is kind of like his version of Bond. And in a funny way, it kind of reminded me of an Adam Sandler movie where it was just an excuse for a studio to pay for like vacations to exotic places.
Oh, I didn't.
So we're going to be dealing with Tenet cultists and Zack Snyder cultists fighting each other. And
I know, because Nolan, like a hardcore Nolan fans, they kind of keep to their own. I don't see them on social media like bashing other people.
No.
But I think this movie is fascinating. I enjoyed the hell out
It's
of it when I
definitely a
saw it.
fascinating movie.
And I was ready.
See, I just wasn't fascinated.
I was ready to dive in. I was
I
like,
could
show
care
me
less if
more.
I ever saw this thing again.
I was ready to watch it again. I'm like, okay, I watched a couple of breakdowns. I read up on some of the ideas in the movie. I got that like the concept that Neil might be Maximilian, and it kind of hints towards that. And it does. The movie does hint pretty largely at that, especially with like the concept that you were saying that like all these Tenet agents don't know anything about each other, because if they know too much, it might change the outcome of the events.
Yeah, they even say ignorance is their greatest
ignorance
weapon.
is their ammunition. But the one thing that kind of gives it away is that Robert Pattinson's character knows what type of drink the protagonist likes. He knows a lot about him that he shouldn't know, and that kind of hints and gives it away that he is Max, who was raised and brought up by this character. I was like, that's freaking fascinating. I'd love to go back and watch it again.
I just felt way more frustrated with this movie than I should have been.
Yeah.
Like I really went into it with high hopes. I was looking to be entertained, and I was just frustrated the entire time. And like I said, like it's not a bad movie, but it's a very uneven movie. It's one of those things where, like, you know, if you can't enjoy it on the surface in the first viewing, there are problems with it. And it's one of those things where, like, if you watch it 5 times, okay, yeah, maybe you can work out all the details and not be confused about certain things anymore. But at the same time, it's like, you shouldn't have to do that. If you're watching a movie multiple times, it should be because you want to dive deeper into it, as opposed to like, I didn't understand it the first time, I want to understand it. And, you know, I think the majority of audiences are like Vader, where it's just like, well, I saw it once, I didn't get it. So
I'm definitely
the
everyman in this.
for
this
sure.
Scenario.
I'm the Nolan geek. I'm all about it.
I'm a Nolan geek too, but like I'm not willing to just like blindly accept everything he puts in front of me.
No, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt, because I haven't seen a movie from him that I haven't liked.
The best part about this movie was just getting to hang out with you guys for a day.
Yeah.
Going to an actual theater.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And it's funny because John David Washington, who's Denzel Washington's son, he plays the protagonist. You know, like I'd seen him in Ballers, and you know, he was the star of Black Klansman, and stuff like that. And like, I think he could be like, you know, like a superstar. Like, he was
he's good.
super good in this, and you know, former NFL football player and stuff. And I didn't even recognize him from Ballers.
Maybe he'll be the next Black Panther or something.
Oh, that'd be really cool. But
I'd rather see him as the next Bond, if anything. I think he did a great job in this.
Well, I mean, like
he'd
basically be doing the same movie.
Yeah, it was
this was James Bond.
Yeah, this felt very much like Nolan's version of a James Bond movie, and I think I like that idea. Like, I love James Bond movies because they're very.
I'm giving you daggers right now.
I know you are. They're very simple. They're very easy to consume. They're fun. They're action oriented. But like,
I actually think that Robert Pattinson stole the show. Like
he was good.
After seeing him in this movie, I'm a lot kind of like warmer to the idea of him being Batman, because he was just like so charming in this film. So like I could see him pulling off like a Bruce Wayne type thing.
Sure.
But he was also like when came time to do the action, like he didn't miss a step. Yeah. Like he really was kind of like the standout character and actor in this movie.
I like the main guy, the protagonist guy. I thought he was great, and I'd love to see him in more stuff.
I wanted to give the lead actress chick a hamburger.
Oh God, she was so
ultra
thin.
skinny. She was like skinny as my wife.
Do you remember her from The Night Manager?
Yes. Yeah. Now I do. Yeah. Wow. That's cool. Right.
I don't think I've seen that.
It's a good show.
I'll check it out.
Legit, really good. Tom Hiddleston.
Another spy movie.
Yeah.
TV show.
Really awesome. All right, guys. That's it. That's our thoughts on Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
Well, would you recommend people go see it?
I would. Yes. I would recommend go see it. I would recommend listening to this podcast and then going back and seeing it again.
I'd recommend seeing it at least once just to kind of have your own thoughts on it.
Yeah. What about you, Vader?
I think everybody's going to react to this movie a little bit differently. Some people are going to like it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, go check it out for sure. But
me and Andre from Backseat Directors podcast, I think me and him would probably nerd out like crazy on this movie. I think it would be fun.
I will say it was more entertaining than New Mutants.
Yes, it definitely was.
I can't believe you guys wasted your money.
We wanted to go to the theater, man.
That's all like, hey man, we're going to go to the movies to see the New Mutants. You want to go? And I'm like, no. Hard pass.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you'd like to support us, go to saltynerdclub.com. You get access to exclusive content, blooper reels, t-shirts, merch, all kinds of cool stuff. Go check us out. Help support the podcast. And Matthew Vader, where can they find you on the socials?
At Matt Vader 74.
What do you got going on?
Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, making some silly YouTube videos. And so that stuff.
Right on. And the author extraordinaire, Matthew Kadish. Where can they find you?
At Matthew Kadish, Kadish on Twitter, and kadishbooks.com. It'll take you to my Amazon page.
Right on. And I am the Salty Nerd. You can find me on Twitter at salty_nerd, and you can discuss Tenet with me, and we can nerd out about how bonkers the time inversion pincer maneuvers are. All right, everybody, have a good one, and I hope you listen to this podcast in reverse.